The boy with glasses. When I was young, I loved to study. I read many books and did my homework every day. I wanted to learn about the world, but the other kids did not understand me. They laughed at me because I wore big glasses and always had a book in my hands. At school, they gave me names. They said I looked funny and called me a bookworm. Sometimes they took my books and threw them on the floor. Other times they hid my glasses. I felt sad, but I did not cry. I stayed quiet and picked up my books. I told myself, one day I will show them that studying is not a bad thing. During lunch, I sat alone in the classroom. No one wanted to sit with me. They all ran outside to play, but I stayed inside. I opened my books and lost myself in stories of great people. I dreamed of becoming someone important one day. One afternoon, a group of boys surrounded me. One of them grabbed my glasses and put them on his face. "Look at me. I am the little professor," he said. The others laughed. Then he threw my glasses to another boy. They played with them like a toy. I could not see well without them, so I could not chase them. The teacher came into the room, and the boys quickly returned my glasses. I took them and cleaned them. My heart was heavy, but I did not get angry. I told myself, one day they will regret this. At home, I told my mother about what happened at school. She looked at me with kind eyes and said, "Do not worry, my son. They do not see what you see. Keep studying, and one day you will be proud of yourself." Her words made me feel better. That night, I sat by the window and looked at the stars. I made a promise to myself I would never stop learning, no matter what they said. One day I would prove them all wrong. The next day at school, I walked into the classroom with my books. I sat at my desk and opened one of them. I loved reading because books took me to different places. But as I read, I heard whispers behind me. "Look at him," one boy said. "Always reading. He thinks he is smarter than us." Another boy laughed. "Maybe he is a robot." "A robot with big glasses." I tried to ignore them. I knew if I said anything, they would only laugh more. So I focused on my book and pretended I did not hear them. But deep inside, their words hurt me. During the math lesson, the teacher asked a difficult question. The whole class was silent. No one knew the answer. I thought for a moment and then raised my hand. "Yes," the teacher said, looking at me. I stood up and gave my answer. The teacher smiled. "That is correct. Well done." Some students looked at me with surprise. Others rolled their eyes. The boys who teased me crossed their arms and whispered to each other. They did not like that I was right. At lunch, I sat alone again. I watched the other kids laughing and playing outside. I wanted to join them, but I knew they would not accept me. So I stayed inside and read my book. A few minutes later, a girl from my class walked in. Her name was Emily. She had long brown hair and a kind smile. She sat at the desk next to me and looked at my book. "What are you reading?" she asked. I looked up, surprised. No one had ever asked me that before. "It's a book about space," I said. "I like learning about the stars and planets." Emily smiled. "That sounds interesting. Can I sit with you?" I nodded. For the first time, I did not feel alone. Someone wanted to talk to me, not to laugh at me. That small moment gave me hope. Maybe not everyone saw me as strange. Maybe one day I would find people who understood me. But I still had a long way to go. Days passed, and nothing changed. The boys still made fun of me. They called me names and laughed when I walked by. But I did not let them see that I cared. I kept reading my books and doing my best in class. One afternoon after school, I walked home alone. My house was not far, but the road felt long. I kept thinking about what happened that day. At lunch, one of the boys, Tom, took my book and held it high. "Look at this, another boring book," he said. The others laughed. "Give it back," I said, trying to stay calm. Tom smirked. "Why do you even like books? Do you think reading will make you better than us?" I shook my head. "No, I just like learning." He looked at me for a moment, then dropped my book on the ground. "Whatever, you will never be cool." Then they all walked away. I picked up my book, dusted it off, and sat down. I did not cry. I did not get angry. I just opened the book and continued reading. That day, I made a decision. I would not let them stop me. I would study harder. I would learn more. And one day, I would prove them wrong. At home, I sat at my small desk and opened my books. My mother walked in and saw me. "You are always studying," she said with a smile. "You are going to do great things." I smiled back. "I hope so." The next morning, I went to school with my head held high. I was not afraid anymore. I had a goal, and no matter what, I would reach it. The days turned into weeks, and I kept studying. The other boys still laughed at me, but I did not care. I had bigger dreams. One day, our teacher gave us an important test. It was the hardest test of the year. Everyone was nervous. Some students whispered to each other. Others looked scared, but I was ready. I had studied every night. When the test started, I picked up my pencil and wrote quickly. The questions were difficult, but I knew the answers. I did not look at anyone. I just focused on my work. After the test, Tom walked up to me. "You really think you did well?" he asked, smirking. I nodded. "Yes." He laughed. "We'll see about that." A week later, the teacher returned our tests. She smiled at me as she placed mine on my desk. "Excellent work," she said. I looked at my paper. A big red 100 was at the top. I had the highest score in the class. The room was silent. Everyone stared at me. Even Tom. He looked at his test and frowned. He did not do well. At lunch, I sat alone as usual, but then something strange happened. A boy named Jack walked over. He was one of Tom's friends. "Hey," he said, sitting next to me. "How do you study so well?" I looked at him, surprised. "I read a lot, and I practice every day." Jack nodded. "Can you help me? I'll want to do better too." I smiled. "Of course." From that day, Jack and I studied together. Soon a few more students joined us, even some who had laughed at me before. Tom still stayed away. He still made jokes, but I did not care. I was helping others, and that made me happy. For the first time, I felt like I belonged. Months passed, and our final exams were getting closer. Every student was worried. The tests would decide our future. If we did well, we could go to a good university. If not, we would have fewer chances in life. Jack and I studied every day. We met in the library, reviewed books, and solved problems together. Soon, more students joined us, even those who had never spoken to me before. One day, something surprising happened. Tom walked toward our table. The room became quiet. Everyone watched as he stood in front of me. He hesitated, then said, "Can I join you?" I looked at him. He had spent years laughing at me, calling me names, making me feel alone, but now he looked different. He was not smiling. He was not making fun of me. He looked serious. Jack nudged me. "What do you think?" I thought for a moment. Then I nodded. "Yes, you can." Tom sat down, looking relieved. "I don't understand math," he admitted. "I need help." I gave him a book. "Let's start with the basics." For the first time, Tom listened. He asked questions. He tried to understand. He was not the same boy who had mocked me before. Weeks passed, and we all worked hard. The day of the final exams arrived. The classroom was silent. Every student focused on their paper. I took a deep breath and started writing. The questions were hard, but I was ready. I had prepared for this moment. After the test, we waited for the results. It was the longest wait of my life. Finally, the teacher announced the top students. I was first, Jack was second, and Tom was third. He looked at me, shocked. "I did it," he whispered. I smiled. "Yes, you did." For the first time, Tom shook my hand. "Thank you," he said. "I was wrong about you." I nodded. It's never too late to change. That day, everything felt different. I was not just the nerd anymore. I was a leader, and I had friends. The day of our graduation arrived. The school was full of students, parents, and teachers. Everyone was dressed in their best clothes. The air was filled with excitement and nervous energy. As I walked onto the stage to receive my diploma, I heard whispers in the crowd. "That's him," someone said. "The boy everyone laughed at." I looked around and saw my classmates watching me. Some of them had once made fun of me, but now their faces showed respect. Even the teachers smiled proudly. After the ceremony, students gathered in groups, talking about their future plans. Some were going to universities, some were starting jobs. Tom and Jack stood beside me. "You're the smartest person I know," Jack said. "You're going to do great things." Tom nodded. "I used to think being smart was boring, but now I know it's powerful. You helped me, and I'll never forget that." I smiled. We all change. We all learn. Then something unexpected happened. A group of my old classmates, the ones who used to call me names, walked up to me. They looked awkward, unsure of what to say. One of them, Mike, cleared his throat. "Hey, we just wanted to say we were wrong about you." Another student added, "We shouldn't have laughed at you. You proved us all wrong." I looked at them for a moment. These were the same people who had made my school years difficult, but now they were standing in front of me, admitting their mistakes. I took a deep breath. "It's okay," I said. "What matters is that we learn from our mistakes." Mike nodded. "Good luck in college. You deserve it." As they walked away, I felt something lift off my shoulders. The pain of the past didn't matter anymore. I had proved myself, not just to them, but to myself. Years passed and life changed. I went to a great university. I worked hard and I became successful. One day I returned to my hometown for a school reunion. The same people who had once laughed at me now greeted me with admiration. Some of them had struggled in life. Some had changed completely. Tom was there too. He had become a teacher. "You inspired me," he said. "Now I help students who feel alone, just like you once did." I smiled. "That's the best thing you could do." Looking around the room, I realized something important. Success was not just about money or status. It was about growth, about proving that kindness and hard work always win in the end. I had once been the boy everyone laughed at, but now I was the one they looked up to, and that, I thought, was the greatest victory of all.